Hip-hop just had its darkest 48 hours of 2026, and nobody is telling you what really happened. Here we go. This is the one they never saw coming. Now, when it comes to Pusha T, and when it comes to Mobb Deep, and when it comes to every single grimy Queensbridge whisper that shaped the last 30 years of this culture, well, before we detonate the 12 most unhinged, most disturbing, most explosive stories of the entire week, we have to sit with something first. Because Pusha T just walked outside, looked the entire rap internet dead in the eye, and declared, without a flinch, without a hedge, without a single caveat, without a single asterisk, that Mobb Deep is the greatest hip-hop duo of all time. Full stop. Not up for debate. Not a hot take. Not a Twitter argument. A fact. And listen, before you smash that like button, before you punch that subscribe button, before you detonate that hype button so hard it launches Pusha T straight into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, understand this. Pusha T did not stutter. Prodigy and Havoc built the blueprint the whole genre is still tracing to this very hour. And the fact that a Virginia legend, a Clips architect, a man who has spent 2 decades sharpening the sharpest pen in the game, is out here crowning Queensbridge, that alone is a story worth breaking the internet over. But that is not why you clicked. That is not why the algorithm is about to launch this thing into orbit. Because in the same 48 hours, in the same week, in the same media cycle, the culture watched something that has genuinely never happened before. And I am not exaggerating when I say the ripple is going to shake the entire industry for the rest of the year, maybe the rest of the decade. So sit down. Buckle in. Lock the phone. Close the extra tabs. This one is different. This one is heavier than anything you have seen on a rap news channel all year, and I am not going to soften a single sentence, a single detail, a single receipt to make it easier to swallow. Now, before we get into the truly gruesome part, before we open the file on the story that forced grown adults to walk out of a courtroom in California with tears in their eyes, let me just be honest with you. The David murder case is the kind of thing rap blogs do not know how to cover, because it is not rap. It is not hip-hop. It is not entertainment. It is a horror movie that decided to walk out of the screen and into the news cycle. Spectators had to leave the room. Bailiffs had to study the jury. The judge had to gavel a recess. Reporters in the gallery had to step outside just to breathe. And when the details started leaking from the courtroom, the entire internet froze. Because to fit a full-grown body into the front trunk of a Tesla Model Y, you have to do things to that body that no human being with a soul should ever consider. I own a Tesla. I have opened that frunk 100 times. I know exactly how small it is. And I am telling you right now, without dressing this up, without softening it, without letting the algorithm sanitize the truth, you cannot fit a person in there. Not a small person. Not a curled up person. Not a folded person. Nobody. Unless. And that is the unless that broke the courtroom. Unless the body has been cut. Unless the body has been folded in ways bodies were never designed to fold. Unless somebody, in a moment of pure panic, made the coldest decision a human being can make. This is not a rap crime. This is not a street beef. This is not a corner dispute. This is mob movie evil dressed in Silicon Valley clothing. The whispers already floating around the case suggest an overdose, a panic, a cover-up, and a decision so cold that even hardened crime reporters from the LA Times and the Times of London are struggling to type the details out. Because she was underage. She was somebody's daughter. She was somebody's baby sister. And you do not walk away from that. You do not slip out of that. You do not outlawyer that. You do not outplea that. He is going away for the rest of his natural life, and if California ever reinstates the ultimate penalty, that is the case they will point to in every law school textbook from now until the sun burns out. And I do not say that lightly. I say that because the frunk is small, the evidence is enormous, and the cover-up was the confession. Case closed before the trial even ended. And when the sentencing hits, and it will hit, do not be surprised if the judge reads the record and takes a breath before speaking, because some cases are heavy enough to slow down the gavel. Now shift the lens. Because in the middle of that darkness, the internet did what the internet always does. It tried to give us a laugh, tried to give us a lifeline, tried to give us a reason to keep scrolling. And this one is elite. Spice, the Jamaican queen who has been carrying dancehall on her back for over 2 decades, a woman whose catalog is deeper than most careers ever get to be, a woman who has outlasted 3 generations of one-hit wonders. Spice decided that yesterday was the day to shoot her shot at Drake. Not with a DM. Not with a subtweet. Not with a cryptic Instagram story. With an AI-generated photo of Drake feeding her. And Spice posted it. On her main timeline for the world. Family plan visible. Grandmother scrollable. And Drake, who has apparently been personally training a stealth operations team of thirst detection AI in a bunker under the OVO warehouse, saw it within minutes and slid in with the line of the year, "I would have taken this pic for real with you." And Spice, without missing a beat, without hesitating for a single second, without giving her publicist a chance to draft a professional response, replied, "Where you at? Where's the address? I'm coming because I need my picture." And listen. This is Drake's type. This has been Drake's type since Serena Williams. This has been Drake's type since Rihanna. This has been Drake's type since forever. Drake gravitates toward women with power, presence, receipts, and a track record that dwarfs half the men in the industry. Drake is not chasing clout girls. Drake is chasing champions. So when Spice says she needs her picture, understand Drake is booking flights. Drake is clearing calendars. Drake is going to make sure that AI-generated meal turns into a real one. And frankly, at this point in the culture, we could use a wholesome Drake-Spice link-up more than another rap beef, more than another Instagram diss, more than another cryptic OVO subtweet. Give us the picture. Give us the dinner. Give us the soft launch. Give us the joint Christmas card. Give us the paparazzi shot outside Nobu. The internet has earned it, and the algorithm will thank you. Now punch it forward, because we have to talk about Rick Ross, and I have been dreading this segment all week, and I mean that from the bottom of my chest cavity. Because the final first-week numbers for Rick Ross's new project dropped, and it is not what the Maybach music group army wanted to hear, and it is not what Rick Ross wanted to hear, and it is definitely not what the label meeting wanted to hear. 17,200. 17.2K. That is the number. And look, 17K is not a career-ending number in isolation, but for a legend of Rick Ross's stature, on a big label rollout, with the promo machine humming and the podcast circuit booked and the anniversary tour blazing, it is a signal. It is a giant, blinking, red alert signal that rap is not selling the way rap used to sell, and Rick Ross is not the only one absorbing that hit. Because let me just be honest with you, the album is not bad. The beats are gorgeous. The features are stacked. The production budget is visible in every mix. But it is a filler album. A filler album stuffed with over 20 tracks, and I have said this 10 different ways on 10 different videos, you do not need 20 songs. You need 10 bangers. You need 10 hit records. You need 10 records that stop a car radio in the middle of a red light. And nobody knows how to make a hit record anymore. That is the truth nobody wants to say out loud. That is the diagnosis Rick Ross's album is quietly delivering to the entire genre. Rick Ross is the mirror. Rick Ross is the receipt. Rick Ross is the black box of a plane that has been quietly crashing since 2019. And it hurts, because I do not want to see rap die. I know you do not want to see it either. If you are watching this, if you made it this far into the video, you love this culture the same way I do. So the question is not, is Rick Ross washed? The question is, where is the unification? Where is the moment where ego gets checked at the door and Drake calls Lil Wayne and says, "Uncle, let's make the album that reminds the world why we matter"? Where is the moment where Meek Mill and Whale sit in a room with Rick Ross and say, "Maybach music never should have gone quiet"? Because that flag Rick Ross keeps waving? Maybach Music Group does not exist anymore. It is a hashtag. It is a nostalgia badge. It is a tattoo on a chest that has forgotten what it stands for. Meek Mill is not on the album. Whale is not on the album. Just because you dap a man up in public does not mean the label is alive. Just because you smile at a man in the hallway does not mean the roster is breathing. Being cool does not mean the roster is intact. Being cordial does not mean the movement is breathing. Being polite does not mean the flag is flying. And this is the part of hip-hop that has to reckon with itself before the numbers get worse, before the streaming graph goes vertical downward, before the whole first-week economy caves in on itself, and nobody left in the genre knows how to build it back up. Now, let me pivot to the man at the top of that same conversation, because Drake is doing something the internet has completely refused to notice, and I need you to lock in. During the Kendrick Lamar war, Drake stood in the arena alone. Lil Wayne was silent. Nicki was silent. The entire Young Money army that Drake carried on his back for a decade silent. Not a tweet. Not a story. Not a stage shout. Not a single Instagram like. Silent. And now, when the dust settles, when the smoke clears, when the receipts get audited, when the room tone finally quiets down, Drake is the guy left holding the whole flag. And that is why the Rick Ross conversation matters, because it is the same conversation. Because the same disease that ate Maybach music from the inside is the disease eating Young Money from the inside, a refusal to move as a unit. A refusal to defend your own. A refusal to stack shields when the arrows are flying. That is why rap is where it is. That is the diagnosis. That is the mirror. That is the autopsy. And nobody wants to look in it. Nobody wants to hold the flashlight. Nobody wants to write the report. Somebody has to. So let it be this video. Let it be this channel. Let it be this rundown. Now here comes the Kendrick moment, because you know I could not sit through a whole rundown without touching the king. And listen, 50 Cent just announced that 50 Cent is working on new music with Eminem, and 50 Cent has unreleased Tupac recordings sitting in the vault ready for the Street Fighter movie soundtrack. And I am going to say something the algorithm might not like. Do we need this? Do we really need this in 2026? Because from 1998 to about 2010, the Tupac vaults were mined so thoroughly, so relentlessly, so extensively, so exhaustively, that the man's ghost had calluses. Every unreleased verse became 6 unreleased verses. Every leaked freestyle became a whole album. Every whispered ad-lib became a full-length feature. And now 50 Cent is telling us there is a Street Fighter movie theme featuring 50 Cent, Eminem, and Tupac, and I am not going to say I hate the concept, but I am going to say the excitement meter is barely registering. Because 50 Cent, the artist, is basically done. 50 Cent said it himself, no more albums, singles only, from now until eternity. And the singles are barely tracking. There was one recently that hit 5 million streams total, and in the Drake vs. Kendrick era where numbers dwarf that in 3 hours on a Tuesday, 5 million total is a whisper in a hurricane. But listen, 50 Cent has moved on. 50 Cent is deep in the REIT game. Real estate investment trusts. 50 Cent is investing in property with the kind of rich people whose portfolios do not appear on Billboard, whose LLCs do not appear on Google, whose names do not appear on TMZ. And that is the smartest pivot in the game right now. Because you cannot streamline real estate. You cannot pull up a chart and prove somebody is lying about it. You cannot fact-check a warehouse in New Jersey. That is why every hustler eventually says the same 3 words, I do real estate. Yeah, sure you do. Show me the LLC. Show me the deed. Show me the K-1 tax form. Show me the property manager's contact. Or sit down. And 50 Cent, unlike 90% of the I do real estate crowd, can actually produce those documents on demand. That is why 50 Cent wins. That is why 50 Cent is still cashing checks while half his generation is filing bankruptcy papers. Now, speaking of sitting down, YG walked into a press run this week and got absolutely bombarded with Drake questions. Because YG dissed Drake during the Kendrick Lamar campaign, one of the loudest West Coast voices in the whole conflict, one of the sharpest tongues in the whole beef, and now that Drake mentioned YG on the 2010 radio record, everybody with a microphone wanted the smoke. And YG did the smartest thing YG has ever done at a mic. YG said, I am not answering any of that. You are trying to go viral. And listen, YG is right. YG is more than right. YG is scholarly right. Because that is the only thing that would have gone viral from that press run. The Versus did not do it. YG versus Game was not a fight, it was a kumbaya. They played the hits. They hugged it out. They shouted the DJ out. Nobody won. Nobody lost. Nobody cared. Nobody will remember it by Christmas. And I will say what everybody was thinking. Game losing that stage to YG is embarrassing. Because Game has the bigger records. Game has the bigger catalog. Game has the resume that should have shut that stage down in the first 20 minutes. But Game did not bring the fire, and now the whole internet is asking whether Game versus Rick Ross would have been the actual matchup we deserved, or whether Tyga versus YG would have delivered the West Coast versus the culture actually needed. Because Come By versus is not what we signed up for. Come By versus is a wedding reception. Come By versus is a family cookout. Come By versus is a Sunday afternoon barbecue. We signed up for war. Give us war. Give us actual bar-for-bar destruction. Give us the sweat, the smoke, the standoff. Or do not bother booking the arena. Do not bother selling the pay-per-view. Do not bother printing the tickets. Now roll it into the next casualty, because Moneybagg Yo dropped a new record and 50 Cent co-signed it publicly on his story. And listen, Moneybagg Yo is not my personal lane, but the song is solid. Osama, the record in question, is where rap is right now, melodic, murky, mumble-adjacent, structurally simple, hook-forward, verse-optional. It is a subgenre and, honestly, it needs its own name. Call it frunk rap. Call it fog rap. Call it whatever the algorithm files it under. But do not call it hip-hop's future, because it is not hip-hop's future. It is a chapter. It is a phase. It is a bookmark, not a destination. And Young Thug just proved that the real numbers still live in the arenas. Young Thug's new concert in Indonesia is coming October 24th, and the number that dropped from his SoFi Stadium run is bananas, 16-point-something million in a single show. Highest grossing rap concert of all time. Let me repeat that for the algorithm. Young Thug just recorded the highest grossing rap concert in the entire history of the genre. Because for all the doom scrolling about streaming numbers and first week sales, the touring economy is telling the real story. The kids will still pay $200 for a seat. The parents will still pay $400 for a suite. The floor is still packed. The rafters are still shaking. Rap is not dead, rap has just moved out of the SoundCloud panel and into the arena rafters. Rap has just moved out of the streaming report and into the box office spreadsheet. And if Young Thug can pull 16 million from one stage, imagine what a Drake, a Kendrick Lamar, a Lil Wayne, a Nicki, a J. Cole, a Travis Scott can do on a coordinated tour cycle. The genre is not sick. The genre is just recording its receipts on a different ledger. Now brace yourself, because Dame Dash is still pushing that Cheap Teeth record. Yes, that song. The one that sounds like it was recorded inside a broken microwave being thrown down a stairwell. Dame Dash is convinced Cheap Teeth is a banger. Dame Dash is convinced the culture will come around. Dame Dash is convinced that if he pushes hard enough, the algorithm will crown him, the DJs will spin it, the clubs will play it, the kids will chant it in unison at the next rooftop function. And I am going to say the thing everybody has been whispering, Dame Dash, it might be time to retire lakeside. Buy the boat. Buy the fishing pole. Buy the sunset. Buy the little cabin. The music thing is not the third act you thought it would be. The music thing is not the redemption arc you scripted in your head. And that is not disrespect. That is love. That is somebody who watched every Dame Dash chapter, every Rockefeller boardroom moment, every legendary Jay-Z era, and knows this one is a misprint. Retire the mic, keep the legacy. Nobody is going to remember Cheap Teeth. Everybody is going to remember Reasonable Doubt. Play the tape. Read the resume. And let it be enough. Now here comes the sad one, and I need you to sit with this, because it is heavy and it deserves that weight. Ty Lawson, former first-round NBA draft pick, University of North Carolina national champion, man who was once a top 5 point guard in the entire league, man who once averaged 17 and 9, got arrested for stealing a $34 bottle of Tito's vodka. $34. That is not a heist. That is not a scheme. That is not a caper. That is a signal. That is an alcoholic in freefall. That is a man whose brain is chemically hostage. And I am not clowning Ty Lawson. I am not laughing at Ty Lawson. I am telling you that the NBA and the culture around the NBA has to reckon with the number of former players who are drowning right now in silence. Because Ty Lawson had a career. Ty Lawson had money. Ty Lawson had a name. Ty Lawson had a Wikipedia page most college athletes would kill for. And $34 of cheap vodka was worth risking Ty Lawson's entire freedom over. That is not a joke. That is a hostage negotiation happening inside a human being's own head. That is a chemistry problem that has become a legal problem. And somebody in Ty Lawson's circle needs to reach Ty Lawson before the next headline is not about vodka but about something far, far worse. This is a save-a-life call. Not a punchline. Not a meme. A save-a-life call. Now, before you spiral, let me pivot to the drama that has the internet in a chokehold. Chrisean Rock, yes, that Chrisean Rock, was reportedly caught on camera crying after Blueface pulled the ultimate move, which the internet is politely calling cracked her and dipped. And listen. Who films themselves crying? Who picks up the phone, activates the front camera, checks the lighting, hits record, adjusts the angle, and then starts sobbing? That is a whole generational disorder. That is not heartbreak. That is content. That is a monetization strategy dressed as emotion. That is a business plan wearing tears. And Instagram, meanwhile, just banned the medical meta glasses, the ones people were using to secretly film strangers for TikToks, the ones influencers were weaponizing in every restaurant, every subway car, every airport lounge. Because the surveillance content ecosystem finally got too dark to defend. And that is a good ban. That is a necessary ban. That is a ban a whole generation should have demanded 3 years ago. Because we are watching the internet cannibalize the privacy of every stranger it can find, and the platforms finally had to draw the line somewhere. So good on Meta for finally pulling the plug on the front cam of social media. Bad look for everybody who thought secret filming strangers was a business model. Now back to Rick Ross, because I promised you the receipt. Rick Ross went on IG Live from the tour bus, backstage at the 20th anniversary celebration, and offered his explanation for the 17K first week. And listen to what Rick Ross said, word for word, straight from the tour bus. Rick Ross said, "Those numbers you seeing coming up, those are just my streaming numbers. Next week we will have my accurate streaming plus my physicals. And regardless, as young hustlers, as young artists, do not let that first week make or break you. When Basquiat painted a work of art, he never knew what it would value one day. That got to live generations. Generations. Do not let them throw you off. Set in Stone. Album of the year." Okay, Rosie. Rosie, I hear you. But I have to say, Set in Stone is not living a week, much less generations. And it is not about disrespecting Rick Ross. It is about respecting the audience. Because if you say you do not care about the numbers and then you spend 9 minutes on live explaining the numbers, then you care about the numbers. It is fine to care about the numbers. Everybody cares about the numbers. Jay-Z cares about the numbers. Beyoncé cares about the numbers. Kendrick Lamar cares about the numbers. But do not gaslight the fan base into thinking Set in Stone is Basquiat while it is quietly leaking oil in the driveway. Just say, streaming has changed. My fan base has aged. I dropped a project I love and I stand by every song. That is honest. That is respectable. That is the answer. That is the response the culture would have applauded. The Basquiat comparison, respectfully, is a bridge too far. Basquiat died with his art misunderstood. Rick Ross is very much alive, very much streaming, and very much explaining himself in real time on Instagram Live. Those are not the same. Now here is the story that broke me this week, and I do not want you to scroll past it. 21 Savage's 14-year-old nephew took his own life this week after accidentally shooting his 12-year-old sister, who is thankfully alive and recovering in a Georgia hospital. 14 years old. He picked up a gun. He made a horrible, catastrophic mistake. And he could not carry the weight of it. He could not carry the weight of what he thought he had done to his baby sister. And I want to tell every single parent watching this video, every single guardian, every single older sibling, every single uncle, every single aunt, if you have a firearm in your house and you have children in that house, that gun needs to be locked. It needs to be in a biometric safe. It needs a fingerprint. It needs a password. It needs a combination. It needs anything except a nightstand drawer, a closet shelf, a glove compartment. Because kids are curious. Kids do not understand consequences. Kids process the world through experimentation, through touch, through imitation of what they see in movies. And you cannot bring a sister back to full recovery without her brother in her life. You cannot unfire the round. You cannot unwrite the family tragedy. $100 safe would have saved this family. $100 decision. That is the math. I am pro-protection. I am pro-firearm safety. I am pro you defending your home. Nobody who watches this channel wants to strip your rights. But a weapon left loose in a home with children is a countdown, not a deterrent. A weapon in a drawer is a tragedy waiting for a Tuesday afternoon. Lock them up. Every single one of them. Please. And if you know a family with kids and unlocked guns, forward this segment to them tonight, before the next headline lands. Now, in a lighter beat, DJ Khaled is flying back into the studio because DJ Khaled says he still has to find the one for his upcoming album, that one hook, that one feature, that one anthem that unlocks the whole project. Classic DJ Khaled behavior. Big Meech and Lil Meech are trending because they are now, brace yourself, streamers. Streamers. Twitch panels. Camera lights. Alert systems. That is where the culture is. From federal cases to Twitch panels in less than a decade. Kodak Black is getting his bond money back after prosecutors missed the recharge deadline, a rare procedural win for the sniper gang camp. Mistah got arrested over the Oakland 4th of July fireworks investigation, which sounds like a joke until you read the affidavit. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in illegal fireworks, plus a stolen firearm sitting in the pile like it belonged there. And I am asking the question everybody wants to ask, Mistah, what is a stolen firearm doing in the fireworks stash? What is the crossover product there? What is the customer overlap? Who walks into a fireworks tent asking, you got any Roman candles? Also, you got any pistols? Somebody explain the business model. Somebody draw the Venn diagram. And Chrisean Rock, still crying, still filming, now says Chrisean Rock is moving out of the country, and the question the whole internet is asking is, what country is going to accept that Homeland Security file? Because whichever consulate signs off on that visa application deserves hazard pay, a raise, and a whole week off. Now here is the seismic story of the week, the one nobody in sports media is framing correctly, and I am going to tell you the truth. LeBron James issued a full press release essentially announcing what everybody suspected LeBron James's last season is coming, and LeBron is choosing his final chapter with intention. And the leak is that Philadelphia is where LeBron wants to close the book on the greatest basketball career of the modern era. LeBron said it himself, I am not going for the money. I am going for family. Would it be going to the Cavs again? I still want to sacrifice. I still want to grind. I still want to compete for a championship. I believe I can help make the Sixers a championship team. And I am excited to energize a new fan base. And Northeast Ohio will always be home. Now listen. Listen carefully. Because I am not the sports guy on this channel, I am the culture guy. But when you watch LeBron James across 2 decades, you see a pattern that nobody wants to name out loud. LeBron clashes with coaches. LeBron builds shadow rosters. LeBron negotiates for full front office control. And LeBron James is only going to Philadelphia if Philadelphia lets LeBron coach the team from inside a jersey. That is not a criticism. That is a resume. That is how legends operate. The Sixers do not just get a player, they get a co-general manager, a shadow coach, a locker room CEO, an unofficial media strategist. And if you are Nick Nurse or whoever is on that sideline when LeBron shows up, you are either fully bought in or fully replaced by February. There is no middle lane. There is no coexistence. There is no compromise. LeBron James is the sun. Everything else is a moon. And Philadelphia is about to learn what orbit feels like when the star at the center is a 40-year-old inevitability with 4 rings, a lifetime scoring record, and a hunger nobody in the East can match. Now here comes the take that will light up your comment section, because I want to talk about what Slim Thug just said about homelessness. Slim Thug went on record saying Slim Thug has zero sympathy for people who are homeless. Zero. Slim Thug said homeless people made dumb decisions, they did drugs, They threw it all away, and you have to do a lot to end up on the street. And I have to break this down, because Slim Thug is a legend, but Slim Thug is wrong. Slim Thug is wrong, and I say that with all due respect to a Texas great whose music I still play at full volume with the windows down. Yes, some homeless people struggle with mental illness. Yes, some struggle with addiction. Yes, some made choices that spiraled downward. But that is not the whole picture. That is not even close to the majority picture. Because let me lay it out for you. Say you are making $25 an hour. That is a decent wage. That is a wage a lot of people would kill for. But your employer is not giving you guaranteed hours. Your rent is climbing every single year, every single lease renewal. The cheap neighborhood is dangerous, so you pay more to sleep safely at night. The car you need to get to work eats your paycheck. Insurance eats another chunk. Groceries eat another chunk. Gas eats another chunk. You are living check to check to check to check. And all it takes is one job loss, one medical bill, one car breakdown, one uninsured accident, and you are 2 months behind on rent with no runway. That is not a dumb decision. That is a systemic countdown clock. That is math. That is arithmetic. That is a spreadsheet nobody in Slim Thug's tax bracket is looking at anymore. And the reason Slim Thug cannot see it is because Slim Thug is rich. And that is not a shot at Slim Thug for being rich. Being rich is beautiful. Being rich is the goal. Being rich is what we are all trying to become. But if you have money, you should still be able to look at somebody's situation and imagine the math from their side of the table. I worked with Slim Thug before. I like Slim Thug personally. Slim Thug is a cool dude in a room. But there is a pattern with Slim Thug that I have noticed. Slim Thug reacts quickly. Slim Thug posts quickly. Slim Thug does not sit with a thought before it becomes a tweet, a caption, a podcast quote. And that is exactly what happened here. Slim, this one you did not need to say. Not because you are wrong to have opinions, but because the opinion did not require public transmission. Read the room, brother. Read the timeline. Read the receipts. And take the L quietly. Now, before I wrap this whole thing up, one more heartbreak, Brittany Runner. Brittany Runner is out here posting her circumstances every 12 hours, and Brittany Runner is 34, but the internet is aging her by the minute because Brittany Runner is exhausted, stressed, financially cornered. And listen. If you're in bad circumstances, the internet is not therapy. The internet is not a lifeline. The internet is not a support group. The internet is a magnifying glass that turns your worst days into content for strangers who do not love you, who do not know you, who will never call to check on you. Brittany, respectfully disappear. Log off. Delete the app. Go get your money. Go get your peace. Go do what you have to do to stabilize the ship. There is no shame in it. There is only survival. And survival is the whole game. Everything else is decoration. Everything else is noise. Everything else is a distraction from the only mission that matters, the mission of getting your feet back under you before the internet turns your bad month into a viral compilation. And listen, one more receipt before the outro. King Yella celebrated his son's release this week after posting $30,000 in bail, and this comes after King Yella publicly admitted King Yella had failed as a father because King Yella could not afford the bail in the first place. Now the bail is posted. Now the son is home. And the whole timeline is asking whether King Yella pulled the money from a features drop, from a stimulus check, from a GoFundMe, from a favor called in. Nobody knows. King Yella is not telling. And that ambiguity is exactly the kind of parenting under pressure story the rap internet never processes correctly. Give King Yella his grace. Give the son his second chance. Move on. And in the same news cycle, Rick Ross posted a picture of Rick Ross standing next to a private jet, captionless, contextless, gloating adjacent, and the whole internet spent 48 hours trying to figure out if it was Rick Ross's jet, Michael Jordan's jet, or a rental jet parked at a Clearport hangar in Miami. Nobody knows. Rick Ross is not telling. But the vibe is clear. Rick Ross wants you to think Rick Ross still has the jet. Whether the jet is Rick Ross's or not, well, that is a question for the flight logs. And flight logs never lie. Now let me hit you with the meta loop, the question I want you to leave in the comments before you click the next video. Because Pusha T said Mobb Deep is the greatest duo ever. Rick Ross is defending 17K like it is Basquiat. LeBron James is running to Philadelphia for a chapter that Kendrick Lamar's shadow is somehow still hovering over. 21 Savage is burying a nephew. Lawson is stealing $34 vodka. Slim Thug is misdiagnosing homelessness on a podcast. Chrisean Rock is crying to the front camera. Mistah is stashing stolen guns in a fireworks tent. Dame Dash is still convinced Cheap Teeth is a hit. Young Thug is quietly making $16 million a night. And a man in California allegedly folded a human being into a Tesla frunk. This is the culture. This is the week. This is the summer of 2026 that will not stop making headlines, will not stop breaking timelines, will not stop bending the news cycle to its own rhythm. This is the news cycle that refuses to let the audience breathe for even a single afternoon. So the question I need you to answer is hip-hop dying, evolving, or being murdered in slow motion by the same people who claim to love it the most? Is the genre in a coma, in a coffin, or in a chrysalis? Punch that answer into the comments below this video. Punch that like button until the counter breaks. Lock in that subscribe button until YouTube sends the notification bell straight to your lock screen. Detonate that hype button until it launches this video into every recommendation feed, every home screen, every algorithm on the planet. And before you click off this video, before you swipe to the next tab, before you close the browser, go watch the last breakdown I dropped on why the Drake and Kevin Durant Nike situation is a slow-motion disaster in real time. Because if you thought this rundown was heavy, that one is nuclear. I will catch you in the next one. Peace.